Wow.
Say that's not for real. Say
Rick's
psych right
broken
now.
heart. Who does he cheer for here? El Kukui or his
Ring
guy,
of
Salt Papi?
Thrones.
This can't be real.
3 out of the 4 names are MMA guys. Is Misfits going down the MMA boxing path? What the hell?
What happens if Tony Ferguson gets knocked out by Salt Papi?
Nothing. I mean, he just does another fight.
Papi's striking not that bad, by the way. It's not that bad.
I'm just saying.
Who's the favorite in the co-main?
Probably Salt Papi.
Probably Salt Papi.
What the hell?
All right, so I was having a perfectly good time watching the Dustin Poirier clips coming out from this fight week, paid in full, but then the news of Tony Ferguson's next fight was announced, and honestly, it's made me a bit depressed. Now, this is coming right off the heels of another boxing match that's perhaps even more exploitative and gross, and at this point, I feel the need to talk about the absolute dumpster fire that is the current state of influencer boxing, because I don't know who needs to hear this, but putting old washed-up UFC fighters in the ring against random influencers, or even against other old washed-up UFC fighters is genuinely getting pathetic, and it's not something that's being done in good faith. Say what you will about Dana, because God knows I've said a lot about him, but the guy actually has some boundaries when it comes to matchmaking. These fights are being greenlit by companies that are clearly exploiting the name values of these former stars while completely ignoring their medical history, age, recent performances, and the fact that some of them are literally one more knockout away from being in permanent nap mode. And yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about all this and more. Man, the fact that they have Tony Ferguson, who's 41 years old and riding an 8-fight losing streak, signed to get punched in the face for a check by a social media influencer named Salt Papi is absurd. And I get that there's a negative connotation when it comes to these influencer boxers and their skill level, but honestly, Salt Papi's pretty damn good. As opposed to the other bozo TikTokers that are pretending to be fighters, this dude actually has hands. And although Salt Papi's by no means a legitimate professional boxer, I still think that he has more than what it takes to beat up Tony in a boxing match, given where he's currently at in his career and his life.
So you're doing what Khabib could never do, is fight Tony Ferguson?
I guess.
That's quite a good accolade to hold. Do you feel like you're sort of going the Jake Paul route in terms of fighting the MMA fighters, fighting the guys from the UFC?
I mean, I just want to take the biggest opportunity I can have while I'm in the sport, while I'm young.
Because yes, Tony's 41 years old, which isn't outrageously old, but when it comes to fighting, there's good 41 years old and there's bad 41 years old, and let's just say that I think Tony's the latter. On one hand, you have guys like Yoel Romero, who's 48 and about to fight in BKFC, which is objectively way more brutal than traditional boxing, but at the same time, I'm far less concerned for Yoel in his upcoming fight because he hasn't been a human punching bag in his last few fights like Tony has. Given I'm like 80% sure Yoel was given the super soldier serum when he was in the womb, but my point remains, based on Tony's recent performances, he just isn't fit to be fighting anymore, especially when his opponent is a generally competent boxer. He hasn't won a fight in over 6 years, he's lost 8 fights in a row since then, and he was finished in most of them. He has been repeatedly beaten into the mat by every style of fighter under the sun, from wrestlers to strikers to jiu-jitsu guys. Honestly, at this point, if he were to get into a fight with a yoga instructor, I might actually put my money on the yoga guy. He has lost all of the speed and cardio that made him such a force during his prime, his once legendary chin's been cracked to the point where it's become powder, and he relied on his gritty style so much to the point where he never truly developed solid fundamentals. And this is me talking about how his career went in his trade as an MMA fighter, so when Misfits Boxing decides to throw him into a boxing match against a younger, more active fighter, it just feels a little bit gross. Like, could they not have found a more suitable opponent for the guy? He's clearly being set up as a sacrificial lamb, and it's pathetic that they're literally dragging his corpse out of the UFC graveyard in order to prop up one of their guys. Tony Ferguson should not be fighting anymore, period. Not in MMA, not in boxing, not even in Wii boxing. The man has taken more damage in the last 5 years than some fighters do in an entire career, and if you zoom out to his entire career, then he's taken several lifetimes worth of damage. But the worst part is that Tony is still even taking fights, because deep down, he still thinks he's got more left in the tank. Listen, I'm not blind to the fact that Tony is a certified crazy person who has always been detached from reality, and I also agree that he's a grown-ass man and he can make his own decisions. But at the end of the day, when there's a guy like him who doesn't know when to call it quits, then this is where any self-respecting promotion, and especially athletic commissions, need to step in and say no for him. And of course, a company that goes by the name Misfits Boxing isn't going to have the backbone to refuse signing a recognizable name, but what athletic commission over there in England agreed that this is a fight that's worth approving? Tony was once the scariest guy at 155, but now he's just a cautionary tale about the importance of being able to step away at the right time. Misfits Boxing should be embarrassed for greenlighting this. This is bottom feeder matchmaking disguised as crossover content. And this is just good advice for life in general, but it applies to Tony, Misfits, and the English Commission. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Okay, I gotta move on to the next fight, which is Vitor Belfort versus versus Vanderlay Silva 2. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Is this rematch that's taking place in boxing in 2025 more or less dumb than Tony fighting Salt Poppy? Because at least they're the same age, they have the same mileage and wear and tear, so in that sense, it's much more of an even playing field. Regardless, why? Who asked for this? Who even wanted this? What the hell are we even doing here? These two are a combined 97 years old. The last time they fought was in 1998 when gas was 106 a gallon and Vanderlay still had a normal looking face. Is this really a fight that needs to happen? It's bizarre. Lately, boxing has been really impressing me with how they've been outworking and out promoting the UFC, but then fights like these will be announced that makes me wonder what the fuck is going on in these promoters' heads. For those of you who are unaware, the company that set up this fight is the same company that organized the Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen boxing match, and if you haven't seen that fight, then just know that it went exactly as you think it did. I can't help but find myself asking if this company, which is a fucking beer company by the way, is willing to fork up the money to organize boxing matches with names people recognize, then why don't they sign fighters who are below the age of, oh, I don't know, 40? And again, I get it. Vitor and Vanderlay agreed to do it, and the rumors are that they're getting paid way more money than they reasonably should to be putting on this freak show. And when I say freak show, I mean that this is two guys that are nearly 50 years old who are almost certainly going to be juiced up on every steroid under the sun, rematching damn near 2 decades after their first fight. I mean, we know for sure that Vitor is going to be hopped up on the roids heading into this one, and if Vanderlay has half a brain, which sometimes I question if he actually does, then he'll be as well. Like, is this really what people want to see? A pair of 50-year-old Brazilian science experiments fighting? Maybe that's interesting to you guys, but I can't say it is for me. Also, are we really going to pretend that this fight is going to actually sell pay-per-views? Seriously, who is this for? Hardcore MMA fans don't want to see this because it's depressing, boxing fans won't care because neither guy is a boxer, and the casuals have no clue who either of these guys are. The people booking this fight still think we're living in 2011 when these names held weight. What's even more insulting is that both of these guys are legends in their own right. Vitor was the youngest UFC tournament winner in history. Vanderlay was one of the most feared champions in Pride. It's sad, it's undignified, and it's a prime example of how there are bad actors in the combat sports world that have no regard for the long-term health or legacy of the legends. And you might be saying that I was just crying about Tony fighting a younger man, but now I'm crying about two old guys fighting each other, so I'm contradicting myself, but no, I'm not. My point here is that these geriatric has-beens should not be fighting anymore at all. With where Tony, Vitor, and Vanderlay find themselves in their careers and just their lives in general, they shouldn't be fighting anybody young, old, in between. It really doesn't matter. It's just dumb that they're still being matched up with anyone in the first place. The final fight that I want to talk about is Luke Rochold versus Darren Till, which is taking place as the main event on the same card as Ferguson versus Salt Poppy.
Darren's tough, he's a tough guy, but he's got a breaking point. I think he's complacent at times, and I think there are going to be openings, and I can pressure him. I can hit him. People haven't seen me in the boxing ring. I can move, and my boxing has come a long ways. I mean, this is the last art of mixed martial arts I put together, and I like being a complete fighter, and I feel over the years I've closed those gaps, and I'm the best I've ever been.
And you know what? I'm pretty okay with this one. At least this fight makes sense. Sure, they're both past their primes. Yes, they both have the durability of wet cardboard at this point, but at least this matchup doesn't feel like an open casket funeral. Both guys are washed but still have some gas left in the tank. They're still in decent shape and they still can put on a good performance. But the fact that this is the praise that I have to offer compared to the other two fights is insane. Like, is this really the bar that we're operating with now? Combat sports has always had an issue with letting go of its stars, but this new trend of throwing old broken fighters into influencer boxing rings is a new low. And apparently, I guess this model somehow works. I mean, they wouldn't be putting on these fights if it didn't make money, right? And it's not because the fights are good fights. It's because the promoters know they can squeeze the last few drops of name recognition out of these guys before the commissions or God himself finally steps in and says enough. We're watching the slow motion death of fighter legacies, and nobody that's actually a fan of MMA or boxing finds any interest in these matches. Tony Ferguson doesn't need one last dance. Vanderlay Silva doesn't need revenge against Vitor. Influencer boxing was supposed to be dumb fun, but somewhere along the line, it turned to a combat sports grave robbing operation. Hey, I will be the first one to agree that Dana White is a scumbag in his own right, with his own very unique brand of scumbagginess to boot. And he has made some really questionable signings in the past, and UFC matchmaking these days hasn't been great, but I gotta give credit where it's due. He's pretty good at recognizing when it becomes unethical or morally reprehensible to keep a washed up fighter on the roster. He was a bit late to the party when it came to guys like Tony and maybe even BJ Penn, but I do think his track record in this area has been solid enough. Damn, it feels wrong to be giving Dana White props. And for every legitimate legitimate promotion like BKFC that sprouts up out of nowhere, there's 10 more promotions that are taking shortcuts and making pathetic matchups just to make a quick buck. Tony, Vitor, and Vanderlay are so over the hill that when they turn around, the hill's barely even visible in the distance, and they should absolutely not be allowed to fight under any circumstances, yet here they are in 2025. I really hope that these companies like Misfits and Spaten grow a conscience soon, but I highly doubt that they will. If you offer enough money to any 40-plus-year-old fighter, they will probably say yes, but that doesn't make it right. And again, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about the fights that I just talked about. Do you think that the fighters should be allowed to fight as long as they're willing to, or do you think the powers that be are irresponsible with allowing these fights to happen? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.